Quite the start to the season in Champaign. A shutout win week 1, then a top 20 win against a Make-Believe Bird week 2 in front of their first sellout crowd in 8 years. One more non-conference game left for Bret, Bielema and company before they face Central Michigan this Saturday. He joined Rick Pizzo for today's big interview.
Bret, let's start with Saturday night. Probably dozens of aspects within that game that you were thrilled with. But for you, what was the best part of that night?
You know, I think the appreciation for our fans. Illinois is no secret to anybody. Has had some stretches here that haven't been great, right? To have a full stadium, to have a ranked opponent, a non-conference game. Those moments don't just happen very often. And then to come out and play the way we did and to win it and then let the crowd come down on the field, it was a pretty special night. And I think the wins always help, but it's the experience of the whole day, right? Now they go to their cars happy. They drive home happy. I'm sure they stopped in the tailgates maybe a little before and after, so everybody just got a better feeling of Illinois football overall.
Bret, we saw the AD Josh Whitmans post of the Northeast Towers, you and the fans celebrating with the ILL, INI. I mean, an unbelievable piece of video. How cool was that moment?
You know, it actually happened a couple of years ago, just naturally. It wasn't rehearsed, thought, detailed. I literally came out of there, I can't remember what game it was, and I turned and I looked at Josh and I said, "You ever seen that before?" He's like, "No." And so he and I both kind of lived for that moment. It's a really cool, it's a very vertical shot that there's just a lot of people down. Awesome moment, and hopefully one we can continue to build off of.
I know, Bret, that game meant a lot to you, to the players. It certainly meant an awful lot to Aaron Henry. He was quoted as saying that after last year's loss, he rewatched that game tape 100 times or more. How good was he feeling on Saturday night?
You know, I was right when the game got done. I literally was looking for him because I thought, you know, they'd just done a great job. And really within the game, too, at halftime, made some adjustments. Finally got to him a little bit later on the field. And not just him, I've been very proud of our defense staff. Terrence Jamison, another former player of mine that Aaron and him both are coordinator, and co-coordinator, and then 3 new coaches that brought a lot to the table. Just really proud of our staff overall defensively. The very talented quarterback, a very talented offense, led the country in a lot of different categories a year ago. Forced him into three interceptions. Just a really good moment and one that we'll hopefully be able to build off of moving forward.
Jalen Daniels and that Kansas offense have flummoxed a lot of really good defenses. What specifically did your defense do so well on Saturday?
You know, I think we tried to make him play a little left-handed. We do the time-to-throw ratio that he had used through early downs and third downs. Try to give him a couple different looks, let him throw into some coverages that he wasn't really expecting. And then I think up front, we had a plan to keep him in the pocket. We knew he was at his best when he was able to get outside and be creative. So really a couple different avenues working against him. And then, you know, for us, everybody wants to know, you know, I think we're one of the best in the country, and our turnover ratio 8-1. And I think our guys have just been opportunistic. And then for us, we talk all the time about CTO, TTY, which is catch the ones they throw you. Our guys have taken advantage of the opportunities when they come to them, and hopefully can continue to go forward into this week, our homecoming game.
Bret, I know it's easy for folks to say your best teams have always had really good running backs, because that's true. But when you go back and look, they also all have great turnover ratio margins and phenomenal special teams, which I think is sometimes a little bit overlooked. What's your take right now on where your special teams units are and where they need to be to get you where you want to be at the end of the year?
You know, Rick, it's interesting you say that. I had a lot of people reach out to me Saturday night, and many people like yourself in the media that I've built relationships with, they said that looked like a Bret Bielema team, right? And I took a lot of pride in that. And I think special teams is kind of a signature for people that look for a way to win the game within the game, right? And to be honest, we had a moment. I'm super proud of a lot of guys on our field, but we always talk about it's not what happens, it's how you react to what happens. And we have a young player, Mac Rasetich, who's a beginning player in our program who comes from a little small town, Illinois, and is playing on a big stage. And unfortunately, he had a bad moment that dropped a punt, but his reaction to that moment was, what do I have to do to make this successful? And he basically beat out about 4 or 5 KU players to come up with the ball and give us an opportunity to retain possession in a very difficult moment. So it was a great indicator of, hey, as bad as it was, it's about how you react that really matters. If he stood around and pouted or complained, we would never got that ball, and they probably would have got points out of it. So a really good teachable moment there on a special teams play that was everything. And and had a young kicker, David Alano, a Chicago area young man that went 3 for 3, including a 50-yard field goal into the wind in a tense moment, and then really the game-winning clinch field goal that made it a 7-point, or basically a non-field goal. They needed to get a touchdown to win at the end, which put a whole different complexion to the end-of-game scenario as it played out.
You know, Bret, it made me think of, and I'm not sure what game it was that you guys won when you were at Wisconsin and you called a fake punt in a critical spot. It worked. I remember texting you to tell you what a great call I thought it was. And you said, yeah, it's always a great call if it works and when the players execute. But if you make the wrong decision, then I'm the idiot on the sidelines.
You know, it was a game against my alma mater, University of Iowa, at Iowa. The call was called change because if we ran the play perfectly, we were going to move the chains on a 4th down scenario, and if we didn't execute, the chains were going to work against us. Yeah, you know, we had a lot of guys have some individual moments. You know, James Kreutz, obviously everybody in Chicagoland knows Olin Kreutz and his career in Chicago, but we have a starting center, Josh Kreutz, who's probably one of the most consistent players on our football team, and his little brother, James Kreutz, who doesn't like to be called little brother. He was our special teams MVP. I believe he had 10 coverage kicks, and he had 3 tackles out of those coverage units. Just a really good example of a guy that runs a reserve role for us off the bench as a linebacker on the verge of becoming a starter, but also a key special teams player on all 4 core units.
I, of course, should have known that you'd remember exactly what that game. You guys forget absolutely nothing. Hey, Bret, you said at the beginning of the year that this was going to be a different Luke Altmaier because of his comfort level, because of a second year in this offense, understanding what was being called and maybe even more importantly, why it was being called. How would you describe not just how he played on Saturday night, but how he's looked for you guys building up to this year and at the start of the season?
I give all the credit in the world to Luke and his preparation for this moment. He's been very intentional about relationships in our building with our offensive players, defensive players, with our coaches. I have several meetings where I'm one-on-one or I'm in a room with Luke, and I always say volume reflects confidence, and Luke's volume, not just in the meeting room, but on the field, has been exceptional this year. And then I would tell you, Rick, I think the biggest change, you know, for me is just the confidence in the players around Luke, right? Like, everybody understands some of those throws, some of those catches. They all, you know, give a lot of credit sometimes to other people, but Luke knows he's got confidence in the throw that those guys are going to catch him. He's got confidence in the pocket. And I think the greatest indicator of quarterbacks is when they can make something of nothing. And there was a key play, a 3rd and 9, I believe it was, in the 4th quarter. We were behind the chains a little bit, and Luke scrambled to his left, had a dump pass to Caden Fagan going to our left. And that little moment in time there, I don't think anybody had Caden Fagan on a game-winning 3rd and 9 conversion pass on their bingo card, right? And Luke just moved effortlessly. When you can have a quarterback move to your left as a righty and make a connection throw like that, that's saying something in a big way about what you can do when the things break down around you. So super excited about his growth, but even more about the future.
And obviously, quarterback that makes good decisions and good throws makes good wide receivers even better. I mean, obviously, we saw what guys like Tom Brady and Drew Brees did at the NFL level. Now, I'm not ready to compare Luke, obviously, to those guys quite yet. But when you look at your receiving core, they are guys who are somewhat unknown outside of Champaign. Pat Bryant had a great week 1. It was Zachary Franklin in week 2. How has this receiving core grown around Luke in the short start to the season?
You know, I give Luke a lot of credit. In the spring, he got intentionally with Pat Bryant and grew that room. We'd had 2 great players, Casey Washington, who's now with the Atlanta Falcons, Isaiah Williams, who's now with the Detroit Lions. They moved on to their NFL career, and that opened up the door for Pat. He's been very, very accomplished in what he's been able to do in these first 2 games, and it didn't happen by chance. He started working on it last January. He's a leader in that wide receiver room. Zachary Franklin, we brought in from the portal from Ole Miss, and I don't think his time was really enjoyable at Ole Miss, but he really enjoyed his time here and, you know, caught 9 passes for us on Saturday, a couple just clinic tapes on how to do that. And then really some other guys within the room, Malik Elzy, another Chicagoland guy, a guy that has been very impressive through his fall camp to get where he is. Ashton Hollins made a huge play a week ago, and another guy sitting on the verge of doing something special. Had a freshman come in, Colin Dixon, who's really been a nice addition to us overall. So really have some guys emerge. I think we kind of like being the Bad News Bears. No one really cares about what our names are or how we do things. We just care about the results. And that wide receiver room, also a new addition to that room, Justin Stepp, a wide receiver coach we took out of South Carolina, who came in here, set his mark on changing that room, really brought some positive energy and vibe, and really has done a nice job of making that room take it to a different level this fall than they've ever done before.
Great scene on Saturday night in Champaign. Great start to the year for Bret Bielema and Illinois, off to a 2-0 beginning with Central Michigan on tap this coming weekend. Bret, always great to catch up. Keep it going, my friend.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate it very much. ILL.